Welcome to the town hall number 147. At 200, I think I get a shirt or something, which I'm excited about. We did something at 100, so might as well do something at 200. Not sure if we have Mike here today, but let's move on to the next one. I think I'm the only one here today. Next slide. So, my name's John Best. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Best Innovation Group. We do a lot of stuff for Crayons these days. Our big thing is innovation. Really working, well, right now, all of innovation is kind of via AI at the moment, but there's still plenty of other things coming like quantum. And we do a lot of work with Crayon Space with that. So if you're interested, come check it out, big-fintech.com. And though he's not here, I'll plug him anyways. The man, the legend, Mike Lawson, founder, creator, and host of CU Broadcast. I think he has like 5,000 videos out there. If you want to know what's going on, if you're curious about a vendor, if you're curious about information regarding sort of changes in the industry, Mike has his finger on the pulse. He certainly is speaking with everyone. And if you're not going there, especially if you're new to this industry, you're missing out. He's got tons of things in there, so much valuable information on a regular basis. Plus, he does a great job of interviewing people and getting that information to us. So, all right, let's keep moving to the next slide. Special thanks to today's sponsor, our current sponsor, Luma. And I'll tell you, I'm seeing more and more that a case to be made for Luma, that's for sure. We're starting to see more and more uptick on the voice fakes, up 5,000% according to a Gartner report. So if you don't have something like this, even if it wasn't the security angle, just the fact that it it really advances that average hold time or average call response. It just moves everything up if you don't have to do such a heavy lift on authenticating someone if you can trust the voice verification, which you can with their product. And I love the fact that he's very, very innovative and is looking into other things like how to use it at the teller line or maybe other options. So a lot of cool stuff coming out of Luma. Great QSO. Go check them out. Luma CX. And don't forget the group Scott and their team. We know I'm on here, but the William Mills Foundation, I saw Amber earlier, who also helps us in supporting this. So I mentioned the Innovation Club earlier. We just had our on-site out in Moline. It was fantastic. We went to Vibrant Credit Union, which was very cool. They have like a full basketball court and all kinds of crazy stuff going on there. We went to In People, and just, that's credit union heartland. And we sometimes you can be inspired innovation-wise by maybe companies that are not in the industry. And John Deere certainly that's certainly fits that description. You look at the stuff they're doing with data, you look at the stuff they're doing with AI, and farmers need all the help they can get. Development.johndeere.com, just incredible stuff. So it was a really cool trip to just sort of see how other people are thinking in different industries. And after all, crayons are kind of a farm product as it is. It was a bunch of farmers got together first and said, hey, the banks aren't helping us. Let's help each other. So, all right, let's keep going here. All right, today's topic. And I actually I'm going to switch over to my own presentation because there's a couple things I want to show. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Perfect. Take it away.
All right. And hopefully you'll be able to see it here in a minute once I bring it up. Make sure I got the right one. Let's see my screen okay? Looks like you are. All right, so today we're going to discuss some interesting things that I've been saying have been coming for a while, and that is the whole ChatGPT and the agents finally getting into the finance space, which we knew was going to happen, but it was interesting how they rolled it out, and I've got some details on that I think would be interesting to share. So give me just a minute. I'll get connected to that and bring it over for you. All right, so first we're just gonna watch a little video. It's pretty short, and as a matter of fact, I need to probably reshare my screen because I keep forgetting to set the sound and stuff. So let me do that one more time. You'd think after 15 years of this, I'd figure it out. There we go. All right. Should be seeing that. And we're going to watch this quick video. It's only, I think it's 6 minutes long, but it's worth your time. You guys need to see how this is going to work. Then we're going to discuss a bunch of stuff. I've got some information both ways, but this is the ChatGPT finance mechanism if you haven't seen it. So the guy's going to show ChatGPT and connecting to
I'm going to
finance.
show you a new app that ChatGPT created called Finance. Then when you activate that app, you click on your profile on the bottom left. Then you're going to click on settings. Inside settings, you're going to go down to apps, and then you're going to click on add more. You're going to type finance. It's actually called finances. Sorry about that. Click on that. And then you're going to click on connect. This is the first version of this, and it's pretty darn impressive. So I want to walk you through all this logic. So right now, we're just going to click on connect finance. This is supposed to be a preview for testing purposes, etc., etc. But there's a lot of important functions that this have that gives you a preview of how these chatbots, ChatGPT or Claude, could start doing the work that some traditional accounting software does. So when you turn on finances, what you're going to do is you're going to start chatting, and then it's going to ask you to connect your banks. Create a personal financial statement for all my transactions in 2026. So it's going to say Plaid. You have to connect to Plaid. For those that don't know, Plaid is the backend system that most accounting or financial software uses to fetch data such as transactions from a bank or a credit card. These companies pay millions and millions of dollars to Plaid to be able to get this information. And there isn't a front-end retail version of people going directly to Plaid to fetch these transactions. So I'm making the assumption that ChatGPT is paying Plaid to do this to keep you in the ChatGPT platform. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and click on connect. Then we're going to choose the bank account that we want to download transactions from. For example, let's say I want to download transactions from Bank of America. I'll click on Bank of America, click on continue to log in, and then I'm going to put my user ID and password and bring all those transactions. Once your accounts are synced, it will say synced in it. You have the option to add more if you want to connect more banks, and then you'll be able to start doing your analysis. Here's your spend by category. I can break this down for the month of April or for May. Doesn't seem like I could do the whole year. I'm not sure why I picked those particularly, but we'll get to that. Here's my total spend. Here's the spend by category. If I click on show more, I can see all my breakdown here. What happens if I click in any of these? Okay, that's pretty cool. You click on it, and then you have a little bit of a more detail. It tells you exactly what you're spending money in. Beautiful. Services. Let's see. Great. Great. You know exactly where your money is going, what you're spending money on, the dates of the transactions. Get a breakdown on every single one of these. Travel. Let's see what this breakdown looks like. Gives you the percentage of expenditures, where all your money's going. Let's scroll down some more. Let's see what else it's got. Okay, so far we have $15,000 in expenses. The largest category is financial. Let's just ask you a question. Do you own major assets outside the linked transactions? Let's say I own an investment property I inherited from my grandparents, and I get cash rental income. So this is when it gets really, really interesting, where you can even like expand on your conversation. Of course, kind of the focus here was the fact that I had my accounts connected, both my credit card and bank accounts were connected, and kind of breaking down where all the money is being spent. But of course, you can have, you can add more context and use your regular ChatGPT the way you normally would, right? So just continue to discuss that with them. Let me take it a little bit further and see if it can tell me anything about the income. What about the money coming into the bank? What can you tell me about my deposits? Let's see what kind of information this will give it. So you see we have some Stripes coming in, some money coming in from Stripe, some money coming in from Intuit, some other thing here. Scroll down here. We have total number of deposits in January, deposits in February. So this is pretty cool. Like, obviously this doesn't beat QuickBooks or some other like real accounting software. But all of a sudden, I am now giving ChatGPT access to my banks, to my credit cards, and it could do a lot of interesting things. Let me ask it to see if it can build a P&L or balance sheet. Can you build a profit and loss and balance sheet for 2026? Let's see. Now, how accurate this is going to be, I don't know. I think the context of this really is personal, not business. But as you can tell, we're pretty close, I think, at some point to being able to use ChatGPT to connect it to all the banks and do a lot of sort of accounting, so to speak. So companies like QuickBooks and Zero and Digits, they need to really, really figure out how to have a value proposition above and beyond what the
Okay, I'm going to stop it there, but you get the point. They connected Plaid, and once they connected Plaid, they went through and they put together uh, the ability for the system to go in and pull back all of this information, which pretty impressive. So let me go ahead and just talk a little bit about what just happened. So they launched this just a couple days ago. It's the 20th, so 5 days ago. Um, it's all Plaid, so there's 12,000. I would imagine every one of you is on Plaid or close to it. Every person that's on this call that has a credit union. It says 200 million people, but we're going to talk about that because there's a great article by Ron Shevlin, which I'm going to put the link for in here. And then I thought it was good, some of the things he brought up. So that'll be one of the slides here. And they're talking about doing TurboTax and Credit Karma. And what it's doing in my mind is it's unfortunately, another way to disintermediate us. Now, it still can't do transfers and things like that, but I find it pretty interesting how they went about it using the Plaid system. However, I'm going to show you my version of this here in a minute. So I have been working on something similar in Claude for some time, and I'm using some other things, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. So let's get to it. So this was some information from Mr. Shevlin. He posted this on Forbes. So 54% of Americans have used ChatGPT for financial product recommendations. And 3.7 out of 5 were satisfied with whatever came back. So AI is still not really delivering on that. And I think what we're starting to see now is the magic of AI is starting to the magic sprinkled dust is starting to fail a little bit or fade, the sheen. And people are realizing, like, yeah, it's a smart thing, but it still needs a lot of effort from your side to make that work. However, it is interesting that ChatGPT pushed this forward. Now, to get this feature, you have to pay the $100 version of it, not the $20 version. So to me, this is another point of we're watching these bigger organizations trying to ramp up their subscriptions, because on paper, AI is still a loser with regards to how much they're charging for inference for people, even the free ones. Um, I think they've been trying to sell it like a gateway drug. But I thought this was pretty interesting. Um, what it means, well, how many years have we been chasing advisors, robo advisors, finance advisors, wealth advisors, health and wealth, financial health and wealth advisors? Um, and what I thought was more interesting about this is, when you look at these things, like one thing, if you go back in his video here, what don't you see when it brings up this Bank of America stuff is you just, there's no Bank of America branding in here anywhere. It's just a count. There's an institution, it's been synced, and when it brings back your data, it's not really pulled together, in a way that there's no branding. And now that may change because of advertising and stuff, but it also begs to differ of something that's really important that we're going to have a town hall in a bit, which is, what does AI think of your credit union? So in this case, I'm using a product called Comet. And, if I go in here and say, I am moving to, I don't know, let me pick a town somewhere, Binghamton, where Ryan lives, my son. Which also Trish, I think, is around that area. And I want to move my finances to a local credit union. Tell me what's out there and where to go. I am a digital guy. Use NCUA resources, etc. And then I'll put it on a deep, we'll look at this at the end of it. So I'll send it out into a deep research feature. All right, so now I'm going to show you a little bit of what I built. So I built this months ago. I've been using this for some time. So first I'll show you the actual thing. So this is my version of what they do. By the way, this is in Claude, and Claude doesn't have a finance feature. I built this myself, but it wasn't really hard, and I'll show you how I did it. So in my version of it, it builds this little dashboard. This is an artifact, is what they call it, and I can get to this in my Claude app on my phone if I want to. It pulls in all the information for my accounts, and I'll show you how it does that. It at least knows the name of the crate and where it came from. It also has the feature of investments. So in this case, I use an online system called Alpaca, and it can go out there and bring it in and see all the investments and T. Rowe Price, all that kind of stuff. Any upcoming bills, it has all that in here. It tracks all that by pulling it out, and it figured out what was what. This is the Alpaca thing I was telling you about that is online trading. Something I've been experimenting. I've been looking at the poly market to see how that works. And then upcoming bills, right? And if I have any travel, it can do that too. It can go out and pull in any upcoming trips. It pulls into my TripIt and it'll produce expense reports from all of these. So it's pretty cool how that works together. And this is all made on the fly. So I just tell it to start, it pulls it in, and then it creates this piece here. Now, how did I get all this in there? The same exact way that they did, except for Claude doesn't have a relationship with these guys, but there's this company, if you haven't seen it, called BankSync. And what BankSync does is it basically does the plaid. It's the missing front end of the plaid system. So all of this, some of these don't use plaid, but for the most part, they're all plaid. And then you can put in integrations. You can drop in like your Google or whatever. You can drop in enrichments. You can have it. You can give it like different data sets to follow up with, like different little rules. And then you can build portals if you want, which I don't have a need of since I'm using Claude. So I could create my own portal where I could share my bank connections or something like that. So it's an interesting space. But how I did this inside the Claude portion of it means that anybody could do it. Now that said, right now I think this is up until they released it for ChatGPT, I kind of thought, well, this is for nerds like John. But the reality is that this to me is so much better than what I've ever used. And I had a Rocket Money subscription and I killed it because now I have this and I have the BankSync, and the BankSync costs me $9 a month. So it's not a lot to have all of this in one place and to get all of this insight. But there's a big prompt that goes with it. There's a lot that I built into this to be able to do that. So I can go back and look at all these things. So that said, let's keep going here. What does that mean? Well, we talked about this at our innovation club, and I think the thing that really kind of we were thinking was, well, somehow we're going to have to think about how we interact with this, and we need to keep an eye on it. So if you're not running jobs around Plaid and BankSync to look and see if that volume is growing, I highly recommend you do that. But if we go listen to Mr. Shevlin, he'll tell you that people aren't really all that interested in it. I think that for now, but I think when it can start producing results in regards to things like what Rocket Mortgage does, or where you can go around and say, hey, your credit report would be something to pull in here and have it help you adjust that and pull things together. So I think over time there will be more, but he makes the point of, yeah, but do people really want it? And is this just a ploy to sell the $100 subscriptions? And I think he's right. I think in both cases he's right. But I also think maybe for now he's right. But I do not discount the threat of this, because imagine a finance version of the model. Imagine, a model that's tweaked for just finance as opposed to the big giant Claude or these things. And are we going to have to provide something like that? A similar use case. So I'll stop there, and I want to see if anybody's actually used this that's on the call or played around with it besides me. So I'll go ahead and just see if we got anybody that I see things going on in the chat. So, but yeah, does anybody want to speak up? Has anybody tried this? Not me. Okay. Are you going to try it, Trish? You should, because I feel like this is the sort of thing as leaders we have to go know what it is. Problem is you got to pay $100, $100 skill to get in there. But um, and by the way, I thought the ChatGPT version of it was terrible. What I just saw, I like mine better, but that's designed for just me, and that's kind of the whole point. All home banking has always been created as sort of a lowest common denominator, one size fits all type product. We don't train members; we just ship it out there and hope they figure it out, and we try to adhere to the UI customs and UX sort of strategies that have been in place for a long time. But the agent thing turns everything on its head. You saw him asking things like a P&L and other stuff, um, because it allows you to use natural language and it also can give recommendations. Um, but famously, it's not great at math, but anymore it uses Python for all that, or programming language for all that. But has anybody else used it? Just want to see if you pop your name in the chat if you want to talk about it. I'd be curious. Anybody tried it yet? Did you see the announcement? All right. Well, I just wonder what happens if this becomes a thing. I can tell you, I think we're going to have to build something that looks more. I think home banking is definitely going to evolve into something that looks more like my little demo that I had over here than what we have now. I do think that this sort of thing will be the future. And, if we can build a portal like this and have them come to us and we do it for them, I think that could be very valuable. And then we would still have the opportunity. Plus, whoever gets here first, this is strategic high ground because theoretically, about the other accounts. So in my case, I think I have a Wells Fargo. That would be something that people would know or want to see and know. So there's, different options for looking at these things and understanding them. So this is, for me, it's the best way to go. And if I say, okay, can you look at my last trip and tell me what my expenses were? So if I put that in, it'll go in and do that. It goes out to a product called TripIt. It also could have access to United, or a lot of these companies are putting together agent tools right now and pulling that information in. So, if you look at kind of the long play on this, I could see this, like just this portion of it being able to make to do my expenses. Oh, by the way, this has its own email. So one of the things I gave it was its own email account. I think I've shown this before, but you can bet your bottom dollar that pretty much everything that's in the human space will eventually be something that is in the agent space. So for example, this is an email that my guy has an email. So he can email me things and I can email him. I can email him my receipts. I can email him all this stuff. And then when I come back and I check it, and this isn't running all the time, it only runs when I go in and kick it off, but it'll grab everything that's in there. I also have a way of taking pictures of my mail and just sending it to it. So if I get a bill that's paper and I don't have it, and it has access to look through my Gmail for all the subscriptions and things. So it will go through and do all of that. And I'll let this run. So let's go back real fast before I get into the next subject. And let's look about the moving and see what it came up with here. Okay, there you go, Trish. The dominant in the region. GHS, that's nice. So they're listed in there. It's actually where my son works. Empower, interesting. So, but I promise you there are 2 or 3 crayons that aren't on this list that play in that space. Why? Because it could be that, and you can see I told it was a digital guy. So look, it gathered up the digital features. And some of this stuff you may have, but if say you're in Power or something, but your website or your stuff is not agentic enough, it's not laid out in a way that makes it easy for the agentic platform to pull this in. And we find that, the a lot of times bigger players win. So here's one thing you can do, and it's maybe for the future, but if I'm you and I own my, visions or whatever, I would also buy whatever your URL is, .ai and .io. I think you're going to need those in the future. So it doesn't have to be .com or .org, but you can also go buy .ai and .io. I would definitely make a beeline and get it, because I think eventually maybe the .ai might be a way to post um, an agentic only uh, website that is built for agents, just like this email was built for agents, so that it can pull in this data in markdown language or something that makes it easier to digest and easier to share with staff. By the way, this is Comet browser with Perplexity, if you haven't seen it. All right, I'll keep going here. Any other questions on this? Anybody want to pop up and say something? I'll stop my share for a minute before I go into the next topic and see if anybody's got anything. Maybe Andy. Oh, Ken Potterton's here. He's got something to say. He's always got something to say. Maybe one of the AI note takers wants to talk, or Travis. Anyone? Don't leave me hanging, please. Gary Coates, he's on here. Can you still hear me? All right.
Hey, John.
There he is. Somebody
Hey,
would
yeah.
talk.
So this is similar to back in the day it was Yodely that used screen scraping, and it would always break because people would move stuff on the screen on online banking, and so you were constantly chasing your tail. Um, uh, this is bringing the AI version.
Yeah,
It's
and
from the end
interestingly enough,
user.
that has fixed that problem. The AI version now can, how the screen scraping would break? AI
Yeah.
just solves it. They've
Yep.
introduced AI agents. You can move it wherever you want. The AI will go find it and fix it.
Yeah.
Self-healing.
Um, So this is all from the end user perspective, like you said, geeks like you. But then from the financial institution perspective, a top merchants report version of this would be helpful to know where your members are doing business, right?
Mhm.
Where they're spending their money each month.
Well, yeah, and that's what my point was. If you could be and I don't know if this is going to happen. My worry is the way this is going to play out, Gary, is that much like Android, Apple, Microsoft or Samsung, however you want to look at it, but it's really Android and Apple. They're the big players. That, people either have Android phones or they have Apple phones. That's kind of the way of the world. And I think that the agents are going to fall down the same way. I think that it's going to break into three or four major players, maybe Grok, and which is XAI, and OpenAI and Anthropic, and maybe one or two more in the initial. And people are just going to, these services for everything, insurance, all of this, they're all going to connect to these agents. And then the agents will have the, you know, agency, to be weird about it, but on your behalf to go and deal with things. But your top merchants report. So if it is that you could if you could be the open AI in this case, if you could, which the expense would be a lot, but if you can be the AI and have them have this inside your home banking so that they bring it to you. It's kind of the whole PFM thing, but the PFM never really took off for two reasons. One, um, exactly what you said. It broke a lot. It was brittle. And it was brittle because of the screen scraping. That's been solved. And Plaid didn't exist back when Yodlee and that stuff was around. Plaid has much like MX, they have many, many direct connections that avoid the screen scraping. But the screen scraping issue has been solved too, because now you can have agentic self-healing screen scrapers. In other words, move it wherever you want. It'll just, like a person, it'll read through it super fast, figure out where it is and fix it and self-heal. So those two things I think have changed the game. But the other piece that I think people really want is, and that was the key of Rocket Money, was the subscription replacement. I feel like that's the low hanging fruit. And when you talk about your money outgoing, top 10 banks and competitors in that regard, but what are the top 10 subscriptions, right? Is it
Mhm.
Chewy? Is it this? Is it that? Very curious as to what that is. But what I do think maybe this could be, and maybe where there's an opportunity here, is this could maybe be the first paid service of a credit union because we have
Mm.
got to stop giving away tech. We can't afford it. And we certainly can't afford the GPU and what it takes to crunch this stuff to do what I was just showing on behalf of, a large constituent of a membership like Suncoast. So what do you do in that situation? Well, either we're going to lose our eyeballs to folks going here, or we have to present counter value inside our own platform or similar features. But if we could get them, to Gary's point, boy, that would give us some super insight agentically or with AI into what our members, where else they're banking and what they're doing.
Yeah, and there has to be a value presentation, right? The member needs to get some value from it, especially if they're going to pay a fee for it.
Right. And this is something I think you could do. Like I just spoke out at SCCUA Fullerton. So I went back. It pulled in everything that I need to do to send this out for the expense report. It has the Ubers and everything. Just this is a good 30 minutes of my time.
Yeah, time saver.
Right. And
Big
now
time.
I can just say email to Melissa. Actually, it goes to Madison. I'll go Melissa. Um, at big-cu.com. And so now it'll go out and just email that to her. And it has access to that email. It'll ship it and she'll get it and it'll come in from the email box that I showed you and send it straight out to her. So, but I do
Would it
think
also
that, hmm?
would it also be able to make recommendations? So
Mm-hmm.
um, when it does the analysis and says, "Hey, uh, you've spent $200 at Starbucks this month. You might want to cut back on some caffeine or stuff. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
from a financial perspective,
Oh, it
hey,
does
this
it
is
on its
where.
own. I can tell you since I've been using it, it does that for me all the time. It's
Okay.
like having someone it's interesting how the AI positions itself as part of your cohort, kind of part of your like, hey, we need to pay this and we need this and we need that. It's sort of and it puts itself sort of in your shoes in a way. When you look at like the wording of what it was bringing up, the way it was talking to me,
Mhm.
it's to draft to Melissa, so it already knew about this email because I had already sent it. But yeah, um this is all sort of outside the scale of what we can do, but you can see like how smart it is
Mhm.
and what it's capable of doing. And it does make recommendations. Boy, they were looking for me, huh? So yeah, I do think that to your point, I think the value is there, especially I think people are expecting it to like make a lot of recommendations, but I don't see that as being the value. What I see the value is synthesizing this information across a bunch of accounts and
Mhm.
then giving me a totality of that in a way that's valuable. So you can see it's asking me questions. Do I want to include it? Yep, I'll do that. So it just includes that from TripIt. So for the expense report, although they have the information, it's creating a draft for me. So it won't ever send anything because I told it not to do that. I have to go in and just click send on the draft, but it can send from its own email. But this would be outside the scope of that. But like if it wanted to send a message to like a subscription company to tell them to knock it off or I don't want to be there anymore, it would go in there and be able to do that. So great questions, Gary. Gary, have you used anything? Are you a ChatGPT guy or what are you using these days?
Yeah, I fooled around with ChatGPT, uh, Copilot a little bit just because it's built into my laptop.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I won't beat that to death. I just wanted people to be aware of it in case you missed it, because you
And
might
I
get
think that
calls.
I
Go ahead, Gary.
I think the value too for the credit union is, oh, did I unmute? Yeah. Is using this information for your members, knowing where your members, that's what we found with the top merchants report was the top 5 banks, a lot of money was going out the door each month to them. And that way you can have conversations with them about, and it was for loans. So you can talk with them about refinancing those loans. Once you have the data, it's leveraging your data. The data has always been there. You just need to access it and see the insights, basically.
Yeah. Yep. And now you could even go a step further and see the other side of it, were it that they were to create those relationships. And I think some of the bigger organizations like the Alchemies and Q2s, I know they knew this was coming. I just don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm in some ways I'm actually happy that ChatGPT's platform was less than robust with
Mm.
regard to the rollout for that. I mean, if you look at, I feel like maybe it's just, it's my baby or whatever, but I feel like my version of it's far more like if you show them side by side, I think people go, I'll take that one. I just don't think they were thinking about it the right way. And they were
And,
trying to do embedded finance. I'm not trying to do embedded finance. I just want reports and details in a way that I can click around and see what I need. So
and
no,
the
I think
security of it isn't that much of a concern because they're using Plaid.
nah, I think it still is. I mean, you have to remember that everything you tell an AI, especially these guys, the chat GPTs and whatnot, they're keeping track of. This is just going to add to your personal graph. Because
Right.
there was a disclosure, which I took a screenshot of when it came around, and I kept it. I'll have to find it, but there was a disclosure. The guy skipped over the disclosure, but the disclosure definitely said, we're not going to share with anybody, but we have to read it to use it, which tells me they're going to keep it at least and use it as part of your profile because they already have a huge persona graph going. That's part of the value proposition of AI, as we've discussed many times on this show. So I think over time, they're going to pull it. The other thing is Plaid doesn't allow you to do any kind of actual transactions. You can't, it's all read only, right? If you actually want to do something, you got to go in there and do it. But I think down the road, we may see changes for that. We may see this normalized. And that actually brings me to my next point, which is this. So I don't know if you saw, but there was an executive order signed yesterday that directs the Treasury to issue guidance tied to non-citizen banking activities. So if you haven't read this already, you probably should take a look. But I also think that eventually they could mandate like a virtual joint or an AI joint. Remember, I would just keep in mind like this. I've said this before, but we used to design everything when I was working and I still am, but yeah, when I was working at WRG building home banking and things like that, we designed everything for two audiences. It was either the staff or a member. And we have a third audience now. And that third species is the agent AI or the AI agentic models. And if you keep that in mind and you think that, hey, for this thing to be useful as an assistant, if I had an actual assistant, what are all the things I would have to give it? Well, if you have an actual assistant, they generally have a version of your credit card that, is on the same account as yours, but has their name on it so they can buy your tickets and things like that. You have that person would have some sort of email related to you in the same domain or something so that it could, they could act on your behalf. That person would likely have some sort of connectivity to your account, just like your accountant might. And, we already have those multi-tiered authority type models built into the Crayon space. What we don't have is just any legal structure or what it looks like for some sort of AI to act on your behalf. And I think eventually, and call me crazy, but here's how the world's going to end. If okay, so there are about three ways to deal with the Crayon, right? I could email them, I could call them, or I could show up, right? And I can use the website, which I'll call that the digital space, email or chat, or go into the home banking platform. And I think that what we're going to have eventually is a fourth connector, which is agent to agent. In other words, the Crayon has an AI agent and we have an AI agent. And it can go in and do things on our behalf as long as it's predetermined. And by the way, I saw some when I was setting up that bank sync, I saw some of that inside there, and I saw some of it at Citi. It looks like Citi's preparing for something like this. But the idea that the Crayon might have an agentic gateway that agents can talk to, on your behalf. And then if they have the right contracts, meaning the blockchain, legal, zero proof, whatever's been put in place, whatever the government mandates or how this works, then they'll actually have the ability, if you want them to do so, to transact at some limited amount, just like a regular assistant on your behalf. I think that's the future. But, that and a nickel get you some soup. I've been wrong before. But that's kind of how I see things, I think, playing out because it just makes so much sense from a convenience standpoint. So back to this. They want to do red flags tied to payroll tax evasion, shell companies, off-book wages. Really, none of this applies to us all that much from a Canadian standpoint. It's not something that we do a ton of. We're not doing, large commercial accounts where people are playing a shell game with the accounts and moving things around.
Hey,
But
John,
yes,
if you're trying to screen share, we can't see your screen.
you can't see my screen. That's sad. Let me share it again. Thank you. All right. Man, how did I get lost? I must have been Gary. Oh, no, let me share. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. You see it now?
Yep, I see Borderlands characters.
Oh, well, that's not what we're looking for.
There
Rotoscoping, wrong one. Man, I'm having a bad day today. I'm having a bad Zoom day. Let me find my Zoom counter. All right.
we go.
Okay, so he signed this into yesterday. I didn't know it was coming. I just discovered it because I have feeds that did pull this up, but I saw it yesterday, so I plugged it in to see what was what. The order stops short of mandatory citizen data collection. Now, citizenship data collection. It's interesting because I remember we had that bout of that in California when I was working at Westcom, and there was like a special ID that some folks had who were, in the midst of migration or immigrating or whatever was there. But so that's a relief for anybody doing immigrants who are holding the ITINs, which is the tax numbers that are separate. But still, it seems like it could head that way. And we just Kyle just announced a new chair for the NCUA, but they actually want to. This was the executive order. They're still pushing for an actual, and Glenn will be back. He's got a lot of information on this, but they're still pushing for an actual secret BSA amendment to push those customer ID requirements. So um, I'm curious if anybody's looked into this further than I have or has any detail on it that if they, I didn't see anything so far that would force us to change our ways, but I've only had a day to look at it. So I was just, like I said, it's this what the town hall is for is for discussion. So I wanted to see if anybody had seen anything on this and if they had time to do any assessments. Check the chat. And I stopped sharing, so no. Well, yeah, how could you? Things are coming so fast. But now it's out there. So, and the link for this, we'll go ahead and pop it in the Madison can find it, pop it in the actual White House link. And then there's a couple, actually I got it right here. Oh no, this is the Forbes one. So there's Ron Shevlin stuff. So if you're interested in that article, which I thought was really good, this is about the ChatGPT finance. And then let me pop in the other one here. Here it is. This is actually a Reuters article, but it has a link to the article as well. So I'll just put it here. Oh, come on. I'm having trouble with it. You might have to do it. Madison, there's I know Glenn sent it as well. and Melissa, so it should be out there, but it's also in the end of this presentation, which I'll send you as well. It's the next slide. But yep. It's interesting stuff, interesting times. There it is. Good job. So yeah, that's what I got for you today. Hopefully it helps and is informative. If nobody has any questions, I can give you back 10 minutes, but if you want to chat about it, I'm happy to talk. Anybody? Everybody's like, listen, John, we don't have time for this crap. We've got more going on than we ever knew. Hey, Mark Wilson, it sounds like you had a really safe trip back. Did you wind up setting up the bank sync stuff from when we were out in Moline?
Hey, John.
Hey.
I am in the midst of all that right now.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Yeah. My wife's birthday was this weekend, so I was a little tied up with that. So
What?
I'm
Wife's
just getting back
birthday
into
over AI? What's wrong with you? Yeah, that's more important.
Yep, all good though.
So he was at our IC meeting where I demonstrated a lot of this. So isn't that fun? So when I demonstrated this, Mark, when I showed my side of it, the ChatGPT finance thing had not even been announced or wasn't even anywhere.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, after I showed that version of it, poof. It's been happening a lot. I built something similar for that looks a lot like Claude Design. That was something else I was working on. So I feel like that's something I hadn't thought of, is like, all this code that's running through them, they can go and see that code too. So very interesting.
They are watching you.
They are always watching me. But, all right.
We figure out how to run one of these on Olama or something, John, so it doesn't get out there.
Yeah, no doubt. That's another thing too, is pulling in that information. I think we talked about that at the meeting too. I think we're headed towards these much stronger, much stronger, models that will be able to run on, these boxes. I think we're about a year away from having cloud quality models with limitations to be able to run on whatever probably the latest Mac hardware is, or the latest GPUs. I think that's going to happen.
Or that little NVIDIA box that Pete was talking about.
Yeah, the DGX, or no, Pete was talking about the Orin.
Orin Nano. Yeah.
Well, he has 50 of them tied together. So
I know.
That's Pete though. That's not for everyone. Plus, his wife's, we met her. She's obviously very forgiving to allow him to have 50 of those things in the house. Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, it was always awesome to see you. And thanks for coming out to the IC and being one of our members. And if anybody's interested, I know Mark would be happy to talk to you about it if you're ever curious. And other than that, I'll give you back your day. Go and enjoy, and hopefully you got something out of it.